to me, this is one of the most important things that I do every year, is set what's coming. And I like to consider astrology, I see it as we all go down the river of life, in a way. And astrology shows me the map of the river. It shows where a person's rapids are going to be. It shows where the bends in the river are. It shows where the calm and the beach are. It shows where you can pull off and have a barbecue if you want. But it shows the direction. And we all have free will to, swim against the current or whatever, but my job is to show everybody the least difficult way to traverse the river I'm calling 2022. And I used to think it was my grandfather, but I don't remember actually who said this to me anymore, but it was when I was very young. And I said, if you're going to go down the river of life, you might as well have a paddle. And so one of these years, I'm going to take all my writings and stuff, and I'm going to write a book called Handing Out Paddles. And it's going to be the forecast about astrology, how to use it in the Aquarian age, the new techniques, the new methodology, and so on. So everybody, welcome. It's January 8th, 2022. I'm Glenn Arthur Kaufman. I've been studying astrology in 2022 now for 44 years. And we're in the beautiful IAM University community venue. It's a beautiful place. Like I said, I'm hoping to do my monthly lectures here. And welcome to my forecast for 2022, which I am calling Sleeping Beauty Awakens. All right? And I like to give a phrase for the topic of the year. In 2020, back in 2019, I was calling 2020 the year of the rototiller. In 2020, I was calling 2021 the spark heard around the world, and I even mentioned, I did my talk on January 4th, and I mentioned starting on January 6th, there would be these sparks that were heard. And then my second phrase for 2021 was the long, hard slog of 2021. So those 2 years were somewhat difficult. 2022, I'm liking what I see in 2022, okay? And this, Sleeping Beauty Awakens, it's about time, all right? There's been a spell cast over the whole planet in a way. And so it's time to, we all know the story of Sleeping Beauty, especially the Disney version, right? Fairy tales, the fairies, the somewhat dim-witted fairies in the Disney versions, all right? The birth of the Princess Aurora, the celebration, the fairies, Maleficent and Diablo, her spy crow that would go around, and the dragons, and the sword of truth and the shield of virtue, and at the end, the patriarchy saves the day. This is Walt Disney's version of things. Definitely sanitized. I even took a look at Walt Disney's chart. He has a Mars-Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which is definitely masculine energy in Capricorn, okay? So this is, the power and privilege. He was definitely somebody who worked that. And by the way, he used to release every single one of his movies astrologically.
He was a Freemason.
Yeah. Was he? Was he? I'm not surprised. Yes. What Disney has become is something untenable in a way. I'll get into this a little bit, but at the moment, what I want to do is I want to start with I want everybody to close their eyes, and I want you guys all to think about not Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. We've had a spell put on us by the Maleficent of the world for the last 2 years. it's about time we're going to wake up. There's this wonderful Jupiter-Neptune conjunction that happens in April this year. Hasn't happened since 1850s. Right? Never in the history of the US has it happened this way. And I want you to imagine the restriction that Sleeping Beauty was under. Isolation, the segregation, the loss of the feminine, and so on. And then that kiss, okay, that kiss. What is it? I want you to think for a moment. What would it take for you to wake up as Sleeping Beauty? What does that kiss entail? What do we need? What do you want in your life, this year, to be able to live happily ever after? Think on this just for a few minutes. Program it. Do some invocation. We no longer want to be cut off and withdrawn and isolated from our fellow men and parents and station in life. We get an opportunity in 2022 to reaffirm what it is we do want. Not what we don't want, what we do want. So, to put things in perspective, astrologers tend to look at 10 major planetary cycles that range anywhere from 12 years in repetition to 495 years in repetition. Starting in 2015, 2016, we had, back up. These cycles, these synodic cycles, basically have an in-breath and an out-breath. A growth period, fruition period, and then a repression period, a going to seed, the leaves falling, the winter coming, and so on. And so each cycle, whether it's a 12-year cycle that's broken into 6 years of a growth phase and 6 years of a regression phase, or the 495-year cycle that takes 250 years to growth and 250 years to recede, in 2015, we were at about 5 growth cycles and 5 negative dissipating cycles. As we moved into 2020 or 2017, 2018, 2019, it got up to 7 negative cycles, 7 dissipating cycles, and only 3 growth cycles out of these 10. So almost 3/4 of the energy was about retracting, taking away, dissolving. This was prior to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 2020. 2020 was a phenomenal year. We've only had 3 years like it in the last 800 years. All right? It was where there were 5 major conjunctions that happened in 1 year. It's called the Great Conjunctions. Okay? And we went from 7 negative cycles and 3 positive cycles to 6 positive cycles and 4 negative cycles. In just 1 year, we shifted quite a bit, okay? And the opening phases, 3 major opening phases started again in 2020. In 2021, we had no shift whatsoever. All of 2021 was 4 squares, and squares are irritation and difficulty and having to stand up and stick the round hole in a square peg, and this was 2021. No change. 2022, we move to 7 opening cycles and 3 closing. In 2024, we moved to 8 opening cycles and 2 closing. And in 2025, we moved to 9 opening cycles and only 1 closing. And for the rest of the middle of the 2020s till about 2027, 28, we are at 90% capacity of new growth, new opportunity, what I would refer to as the cosmic kiss of Sleeping Beauty for the planet as a whole, what is coming, okay? Now, we are still dealing with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. It's a 30-year cycle that started in 2020. We haven't even seen the sprout come up through the Earth yet from that cycle. It's a 36-year cycle. It's, we got 20 years down the line before we come to the fruition of those things, the full fruiting of this cycle. All right? We still have this year, from 2021, we are still dealing with now in 2022 the Saturn square Uranus stuff. Matter of fact, all year it stays within 1 degree almost of exact. All right? And so we are still dealing with Saturn is the old and Uranus is the new, and the square is, how do you get it to work together? It just don't know. You go backwards, no, go forwards, go back, no. Go. This is Saturn square Uranus, okay? It's pretty much a 30-year cycle. So we're talking at least 10 years into the future on that one coming to fruition. This year in 2022, we have great Jupiter transits, okay? Which I love, because Jupiter is the wise professor, the sage, the philosopher, the spiritual teacher, the guru, the one who understands natural law. And it's about, Jupiter is the energy of abundance. It's Zeus. It's, just total optimism. Matter of fact, the worst part of it is it's too optimistic. It's very easy to take on too much. And then a year later, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. And you start dropping too many things. Just careful, just a few things to take on this year. We're still dealing with the Saturn Pluto. We're still dealing. Sleeping Beauty is just waking up, okay? We're talking about cobwebs, and isn't she supposed to have been asleep for like 100 years? It takes a little while to get moving. Jupiter spends half a year in Pisces, and it rules Pisces. It's the ancient ruler of Pisces, so Jupiter is emphasized that way this year. Best time in 12 years, actually twice in 12 years, because it also rules Sagittarius. Okay? But Jupiter is going to make a conjunction to Neptune. Neptune is in its ruling sign of Pisces. Jupiter and Neptune, they're both in their rulers. This is phenomenal in Capricorn. It hasn't happened since the 1850s. 1856 was the exact one. And at that time in California on the Pacific West Coast, anybody remember what was going on then? What's that? The gold rush. Absolutely. And there was a lot more planets and earth signs at that time. And so, yeah, it was physical goals, the dreams, the Jupiter, Neptune, beautiful dreamer, the wonderful ideas of what can happen. This time, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunctions happens with a lot more planets and air signs, okay? And in this case, I am calling the springtime of 2022 and through the middle of the 2020s. First, I'm calling it the new roaring 20s, but I'm particularly calling this year, the spring of 2022, a new spiritual gold rush, okay? Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. Neptune rules, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, the guru, the guru that is tapped into non-worldly things, spiritual things, mystical things, okay? It rules everything on its negative side, from the drugs and the rise of the pot and the psychedelics and everything that's been going on the last few years. That's Neptune in Pisces and its ruling sign. And its positive side, it's the spiritual communities, it's the psychics, it's the intuitives, it's the people that are channeling and starting to see what were they called? The indigo children, remember that stuff? A lot of those people, this is the period where they get triggered. This is where they really take on what they have to offer, what they can perceive, what they can distribute to us. If you have a strong Neptune in your chart or a strong Jupiter, okay, or especially like Pisces or Aries rising in your chart, be be attuned to the idea that no, you're not going crazy, okay? Hearing this stuff, seeing this stuff, thinking people are whispering in your ear. This is how Neptune works, okay? And it's wonderful. Jupiter makes a sextile to Uranus. The first few months, sextiles are opportunistic. Jupiter's opportunistic. Uranus is about change. Jupiter makes a sextile to Pluto in the spring. More transformation, more opportunity, right? Jupiter makes the conjunction in mid-April. And most importantly, Jupiter will be sitting all this year, 3 times. It will reach the midpoint between that Saturn-Uranus square, the crap we were dealing with in 2021 and still into 2022. Now, in astrology, when a planet gets to a midpoint, which the square is a 90-degree angle. So what we're getting at is Jupiter ends up being 45 degrees from Saturn, 45 degrees from Uranus, right in the middle. And it's a way of knitting together, finally getting to knit together that round peg in a square hole that doesn't want to mesh. This year, we have the wise one, the Jupiter, making that midpoint, forcing Saturn and Uranus to the table, to the mediation table, to the integration of the stuff that was tried to force down our throats in 2021, okay? So Jupiter also ends up for almost a half a year in Aries. And Aries, Jupiter in Aries, that's also big energy, masculine, assertive, Martian energy. So Jupiter's a handful in 2022, all right? And whenever I say that phrase, I always think of that image of the 2 hands facing forward, where they're handing something. We see these commercials with the 2 hands. And so that's very much what Jupiter has to offer. And it's not about taking, it's about giving. So in 2022, there's an emphasis on the air element. Fire, earth, air, water, okay? Air element is intellectuality. It's part of the Aquarian age, but it's lacking in a certain amount of compassion, okay? And we have Saturn in Aquarius all year. That's the scientist. That's, father knows best, listen up. It's the taskmaster at the back of a school. The old English schools, you're sitting there, you hear them with the click, and everybody's afraid to look back and see who's there. This is Saturn energy in Aquarius. Mars is going to end up retrograding throughout Gemini. It's going to spend 7 months in Gemini, okay? On average, Mars only spends about a month and a half in any one sign, but when it retrogrades in the same place, it can spend 4 to 6 times as long there. So Mars in Gemini, an air sign, for 7 months. So any Geminis here, you get jacked up the second half of this year quite appropriately. Watch your impatience, but plan to step out. Mars retrograde, Mars is as close to the Earth as it gets at that time. Okay. Oh, another thing. Jupiter, by the way, to finish up on Jupiter, Jupiter is as close to the Earth as it has been in 2022 since 1963. So again, more emphasis on Jupiter. Mars is triggering this year too. There's a Mars-Pluto conjunction in the beginning of March, which is one of the historical moments in 2022, but I'll get to that. The retrogrades are really interesting this year too. We start with a Venus retrograde in Capricorn, Mercury retrograde in Capricorn. Both of those planets are making a conjunction to Pluto 3 times, all right? And Pluto is about, diving deep. It's the shadow work. Venus, Pluto together, I call it the rehab clinic, nature's rehab clinic, okay? It's where you learn to get rid of your addictions, get rid of stuff you don't need anymore, the overarching luxuries. And it's not just by us choosing to do so. I just read today, the Ice Age farmer was talking about how they're shutting down. The big granaries are telling farmers that, unless you're poked and prodded, you can't even take your stuff to market. You can't take it to the granary. It's just going to go fallow in the fields. The truckers trying to get between Canada and the US, you have to be poked and prodded, okay, or you can't go across. They're saying like 15% of the truckers are just going to hang it up, leave their trucks on either side of the border. And this is part of Uranus and Taurus, which is going on this year and has been going on since 2018, happens till 2025. Uranus and Taurus, every time it happens in history, we have food shortages, we have poverty, it was the Dust Bowl and things like that last time. It was the war and having to send all of the materials overseas. And so the same thing is happening now, all right? That part, that scarcity, that going back to basics, what do you not need to live with anymore? Yes, and it may hurt not to have to do so, but what can you give up? What do you not need? That's the main message for December, January, February, into March, right now, okay? This Venus conjunct Pluto 3 times. Venus conjuncts Pluto about once a year, but conjunct Pluto in Capricorn never happened in the history of the US. And Capricorn is the governmental structure, it's the behemoth institutions, it's the corporations, the multinational. Venus, Pluto, there's some exposure. Mercury conjunct Pluto 3 times at the same time in through here, January and February. Oh, we're shining a light. We're seeing that. Thinking about the dark things that have happened in the world and bringing that stuff to light. Then, March 3rd, we end up with a Venus-Mars-Pluto conjunction on like March 3rd. That week, in the beginning of March, is very similar to like what happened January 6th last year, okay? But this time around, it's much more about what are we going to get rid of? What are we going to dissipate from our country and not have to deal with anymore? What do we want to go away? Yeah, Mars spends 3/4 of the time in air signs this whole year, 7 months in Gemini alone, all right? Mercury spends half the year in air signs. But what's interesting is even though there's an emphasis in air, it's about air backing into Earth, okay? It's about the understanding and the intellectualism, but then backing it into Earth. What do we do practically? What do we do agriculturally? What do we do with the manufacturing? What do we do with the food? Air moving back into Earth is an excellent process. I mean, I'd like to even associate it to Sleeping Beauty. In the air, there was this young, naive princess, raised in the castle and all this kind of stuff. And when she wakes up, after she wakes up, it's a whole different story. Okay, there's all sorts of different stuff going on, and she ends up having to be rather practical. She ends up having to, how do I deal with the prince? How do I deal with other things that I don't want to give away right yet? But all 3 Mercury retrogrades this year start in an air sign and back into an earth sign. Okay? Once in Gemini, once from Libra back into Virgo, once from Aquarius back into Capricorn, and on and on and on. And the hardest one, actually, is this first one that we're going to be experiencing in January going into the middle of February here. It's the one with Mercury conjunct Pluto 3 times. The other 2 Mercury retrogrades in May and September, they have sextiles to Mars, sextiles to Jupiter, trines to Pluto, all these wonderful opportunistic periods. And so, again, this winter is about not tightening your belt out of a lack, but tightening your belt out of a and efficacy, the ability to get back to basics, the ability to get rid of the fluff that we don't need anymore. In my December forecast, I talked about December. The main theme for December was less is more. Okay, this is what we're dealing with this winter. To the boycotts, the strikes, the boycotts, the union-ness, by us withdrawing our support from things is the best thing that we can do moving into this year, especially January. January, I like to give little phrases for each of the months themselves, and I use those for my monthly topics. And I call January lay low. We don't start really moving out with this stuff until mid-February and into early March. Okay, but again, I'll explain that a little better as we go through here. So, air to earth, all right? Sleeping Beauty, the journey that she takes, the journey that the prince takes to try and find her. There's the spies that are out there trying to find. It's all intellectual energy, okay? But what does living happily ever after sound like to you? What does it make you think of when you think of that phrase? The rapture? Okay. Taurus, the nodes we have this year are in Taurus. Taurus is about luxury and comfort and the five senses and so on. But it's the fixed bull. They like routines. Happily ever after. It's not going to change. It's going to, the same. We're moving from air energy, where in 2021, the Mercury retrogrades were mostly in air and water and stuff, but we're moving into a period where intellectually we're going to slow down and we're going to get a lot more practical, a lot more routine in 2022. So, the nodes this year. North Node, which is our spiritual path, and in this sense it's the Earth path this year, in Taurus. North Node's in Taurus, South Node's in Scorpio. That's kind of like a selfishness in Taurus versus a selflessness in Scorpio. And let me explain that. Taurus is, I love to call the hedonists of the zodiac. Okay, they're the ones. Oh, it feels good. Keep coming. Oh, good food. Wonderful snuggies. Beautiful scents and smells. That's Taurus energy. Scorpio is really more about the idea of what am I doing to you? How am I making you feel? Am I transforming you? Am I causing you to change and to experience that stuff? And so, the Taurus energy is more about me, myself. I want. Scorpio is more about, I want to change, I want to transform, I want us or you or we to go deeper. The idea that the South Node's in Scorpio, it's about the past. It's about how was this done in the past? How did we get out of these kind of situations in the past? All right, to apply them this year. 4 eclipses this year. The 2 lunars are going to be visible on the Pacific Northwest coast. The 2 solars will not be. All right, but the 2 lunars, one's going to be in Taurus, one's going to be in Scorpio. And matter of fact, Wesak, the full moon in Taurus, it happens right on an eclipse. Okay, actually it's the full moon in Scorpio, the sun's in Taurus. And then there's another one on election day this year, 2022. The morning of election day, we have an eclipse going on. And I'll talk some more about that too as we get in here. But holy cow, So, so I talked about Walt Disney's version being the sanitized one. The patriarchy's running the show. They're the ones that come to the savior of the untenable princess, the feminine energy. Even Maleficent, the feminine energy in the Disney stories, they're not that great. They're either weak or they're evil. But it's the prince and the king that come to the rescue. And it's not. That's the most modern version. If anybody's ever read Grimm's fairy tales, the Sleeping Beauty version in that one, okay? Yeah.
Doesn't she have a baby? She has like a baby.
I'll get to that. That's part 2. Okay. But what initially is going on, it's not these 3 dim-witted little old maid fairies running around trying to figure out whether the dress should be blue or red or this or that. What really happened in the ancient stories was the king had the princess, and they were going to have a celebration. And the king invites all the wise women to come and prophesy, to look at the astrology chart of the child and prophecy what's going to be happening with this child. And they were gathering the wise women, the wise energy, the weirding energy in a way, okay? And what happens was he only had 12 place settings. He only had 12 gold cups and 12 silver goblets. So he actually left one of the wise women out. She was kind of a pain in the ass. She was like a Lilith type of figure instead of Eve. Okay, so like the king didn't want to have to deal with that too much. And so he didn't invite her. Well, that's the story behind Maleficent. That's why she was pissed. Okay, because she wasn't invited to the party. She wasn't allowed to give her prophecy, to give her gifts. What would the wise women say about 2022? So that's what I want to talk about here for the next little while here. So we still have Pluto in Capricorn, all right? 250-year cycle has been there since, 2009, 2011, something like that. Stays there for another 2 years, all right? Pluto in Capricorn. I've been saying for decades that by the time Pluto gets to the end of Capricorn, I expect to see that corporations would lose their personhood. The shield, the corporate shield, that the people in the corporations would end up becoming personally responsible. You can't hide behind the Death Star anymore. Darth Vader gets his mask ripped off. This is Pluto in Capricorn. Capricorn rules the military-industrial complex. It rules government. It rules multinational corporations. Pluto going through that is going to change all of that. And it's a slow process. It takes 2 decades or more, okay? The idea that it's happening in Capricorn at this time for the US is a Pluto return in 2022. Pluto is now coming back around in the US chart to where it was when it was first born in the 1770s, okay? Pluto, when you get a Pluto return, you pay your karma, okay? It's where doing unto others, this is where you pay the price or reap the reward, okay? For the US, it happens in the second house of the US chart, which is economic, financial, valuables, especially the economy. This Pluto return is just going to trash the US economy. I mean, we could see it now with the inflation and this and that and the other thing, but we ain't anywhere near done with that. One of the things about the Sleeping Beauty story is when she finally does wake up, things aren't particularly just rosy all the time and they live happily ever after. No, there's other parts to the story. So that's kind of what's happening in 2022 here, is that we're waking up, but there's still this change that needs to take place. And the second part of the story of Sleeping Beauty, that, matter of fact, it was a story called The Sun, Moon, and Talia. was the original Sleeping Beauty one. And it was either the prince or the king, depending upon what part of the world you were in. They go off looking for Sleeping Beauty. They find her asleep. They rape her. While she's asleep, she gives birth while she's asleep and wakes up a mother. Okay? This is a part that just blew me away, that I didn't know about the story and all. And it's like, kids, come along, wake up. What the, it's kids. She went immediately from the princess, the maiden, to the mother, all right? And it's like, I just read somewhere a few days ago that because of the excess crime and the low budgets and then this and that, and there's a lot of big cities have decided not to prosecute misdemeanors, okay? Especially in New York, maybe LA, I think was the other one, right? So check this out, having sex with an unconscious person is a misdemeanor.
I'll make a note of that.
I mean, I just don't get that, But that's what we're being led into here, where, they'll shut people down and won't let them deliver their goods to the market because they're not following whatever protocols are supposed to be hoisted upon the planet. But, something like that, the most intimate, invasive thing that can happen to somebody, and it's, just walk.
You can steal up to $900 and they won't prosecute you.
Good to know. Put the cash box in.
Merchandise, and then you will not get arrested or prosecuted. How lovely is that?
Yeah, right.
Same way if you want to be in it.
So somebody breaks in and takes your stuff, chances of finding it, actually around here it's better than in the bigger cities because they kind of have their ear to the networks a little more. But what these wise women would be saying, Pluto and Capricorn, okay? The patriarchy, Capricorn, father time, the limits, okay? Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. It's all about structure and limitations and definitions and father knows best kind of stuff, all right? They're dying. They're being rototilled. They're being turned into compost for the new generation. We still have, they would say, we have Neptune in Pisces. Strongest period of Neptune that we can. This is a spiritual revival. This is, again, the legalization of marijuana. This is the whole finding that, psychedelics and herbs and things like that. Oh, wow, they do have avenues of reality that we never knew, we didn't understand. Okay, Jupiter, Neptune together brings that out. It's a spiritual gold rush. Okay, but the problem is, as I always like to phrase. Somebody once asked J.P. Morgan, do all millionaires use astrology? And he said, no, but all billionaires do. These guys, the elite, the power brokers, the 1% or whatever, they use this stuff. They know how to use this stuff. They know how to go with the flow, and they know how to get as many people herded in the right direction. They're using this stuff. And the negative side of Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces is like massive amounts of misinformation, misdirection, deflection, okay, illusion, fantasy, you name it, okay? That's where we come in. That's where we have to, whenever I do astrology, I'm always telling you, it's not good or bad. There's a negative side and a positive aspect, and it's my job to teach the client, to talk to the world about the idea, where are we on that axis? And how do we push ourselves more toward the positive side and less away from the negative, okay? And part of this, it's gonna peak this springtime with just the amazing ability to hide and obfuscate and fog. I mean, Pisces and Neptune is fog. You know, it's like, where are we going? You know, what is going on? It's, you know, I just read today that the FDA was going to allow Pfizer to take 75 years to release all the data on this, as JP puts, vaccinations, you know. Okay, so, and a judge came into this in here and said, nope, not 500 pages a month, you have to release 55,000 pages a month. Yeah, so this is a part of that uncovering. This is a part of that, you know, getting through the mess, that taking that wool off our eyes, you know, and coming at it from an intuitive, instinctive, metaphysical approach, a feminine approach. Sleeping Beauty is waking up, okay? The king and the prince are going to get called on the carpet here when what's going on this year. So we still have Uranus in Taurus this year. It's a 7-year period. Again, this is going to contribute to the idea of, oh no, I don't need that anymore. No, I don't need escargot every Friday night, or I don't need this, or I don't need 20 versions or different types of wine, you know, in your life. It's like, okay, what's critical? What makes you live your life happily? But what is excess? It's like the cosmic version of hoarders. And we're going to be going in with Uranus and Taurus and like cleaning out, okay, what doesn't work? What has to dissipate? What has to go away? And same thing with even Bitcoin. Uranus and Taurus, when it went in, Bitcoin was at like 3,500, and this was like spring of 2019. I said, buy it and hold it till 2025. And by that time, when Uranus leaves Taurus, it'll probably be like 80,000 a piece or whatever. And it's moving there, it's on its way, but now it's too late to buy anything, you know, $40,000, $50,000 of Bitcoin. Yeah. So, but there are other valuations, the whole NFT thing. Wait until Uranus gets into Gemini from 2025 to 2032. That's when the cryptocurrencies and the NFTs and everything, they go totally mainstream. Okay, but that's when, you know, and what we need to do as a culture is not let it be the only economic system. Don't give up the cash. Don't give up the gold and silver. Don't give up the ability to have in your pocket or in your home or under your bed or buried in the backyard or wherever your wealth. You know, don't just put it up in cyberspace somewhere. When I first learned about astrology and I saw this Aquarian age coming, I said, oh, two things. We're going to lose our books and we're going to lose our privacy. And so 35 years ago, I started collecting books, and I started doing everything I could to keep my stuff private, you know, unless I wanted it to be public. And we're going to need that with Uranus and Gemini, especially the books. So the supply lines, banking systems, agricultural system, that's all Uranus and Taurus. It's all being revolutionized. All right? I've been saying for a few years, good, viable, organic land is the thing to buy. Not homes, not even manufacturing, because they don't really know how that's going to shake out, but clean land, you know, is the way to go. And I've been harping on the idea of what I call vitality gardens. Last time Uranus was in Taurus, we had victory gardens. I'm saying, no, if you don't want to spend $10 for an organic pepper by 2024, start growing your food, because it's going to happen. As part of this whole crunch, as part of this whole great reset, or whatever you want to call it, you know. So The other thing the wise women would talk about is we still have Saturn in Aquarius. It spends 2.5 years in Aquarius. It moved in December of 2020. And that's when, especially when we started getting the Father knows best, science rules, Saint Fauci, whoever. It's no, it's
Sexiest man of the year. Didn't you get that shit?
well.
On time, we got one called Sexiest man of the year.
Well, he's looking kind of weird when you see his face now. It's kind of so, but he's under a lot of pressure, Science and control, the repression of societal voices, Saturn and Aquarius. No, it's the scientist that is the ruler. Once Saturn goes into Pisces, then we're going to see a little bit more. No, it's the preachers. No, it's the gurus. It's the philosophers. It's the compassionate ones that we need to listen to. So we still got at least a year yet on that. Now, here's another thing that's really wild to look at. The winter solstice charts every December show really what's coming for the following year. Right? And then the spring equinox chart in that coming year shows how things are going to blossom in that year. In 2019 and 2020, actually into 2021, the winter solstice chart and the spring equinox chart all had, 7 to 9 planets below the horizon. Okay? Where you find the planets in an astrology chart is where the lessons are. Below the horizon means it's behind closed doors. It's out of the public. It's going on. It's not being talked about. Okay, that was the winter solstice chart for 2020, showing 2021, and the spring equinox chart for 2021. All had the predominant of the planets, 9 in the spring equinox case, below the horizon. The winter solstice chart now that we just had that portends 2022, and the spring equinox chart that we are going to have in March, they have 7 planets above and 9 planets above. So it's like, nope, you ain't going to keep people behind doors. You ain't going to keep this stuff out of it. It's going to all be brought out into the light. It's all going to be exposed. The lessons to be learned are out in public, okay? Out in society, making waves. The top of the chart, I always say, is the midheaven. It's what do you want on your tombstone? What do you want to be remembered for? What's the biggest splashes that you made in this life? What do you consider yourself an expert at? So all of these planets are sitting up at the top of the charts for the winter solstice chart, showing the whole year through 2022, and the spring equinox chart showing the fruition of the summer. I like that. Okay. And even the summer solstice chart in June. No. Yeah, June. Right. Has what was it? 3 planets in Aries in the 10th house. Okay. Lots of energy up at the top of the chart. Bam, in Aries. It's like, nope, get out of my way. We're coming through. So even the summer solstice chart has that same sort of energy. It just continues all through this year. So there's something special about 2022, and this is this Venus-Pluto conjunction 3 times, Mercury-Pluto conjunction 3 times, all in Capricorn. Matter of fact, Mercury starts the year in Capricorn and ends the year in Capricorn. We start with a Venus retrograde at the beginning of the years, and we end with a Mars retrograde at the end of the year. It's a very interesting little combination of retrogrades. And remember, retrogrades mean that planet is the strongest it gets in its cyclical sequence and its revolution. Okay, because in order to be retrograde, it has to be as close as it can get in its orbit to the Earth. so that you end up with that parallax view. It's like passing a car on a freeway where it looks like that other car is backing up even though you're both moving forward. That only happens when you're close together. All right? It only happens when the Earth and the retrograde planets are on the same side of the sun together, which means it's stronger, whether you go on gravity or whether you go on psychic in closeness, whatever you want, it's stronger. Retrograde energy internalizes it. I tell people to think like a steam engine, a cooker, a boiler. You want to build up that energy and then focus. Don't just blow it out, especially early March. Don't just blow it out, okay? But direct it. Okay? Planets, when they're direct, they're constantly leaking energy out in every direction. They're strong, but they're not as strong as retrograde planets. And this is a big thing that not too many astrologers talk about. These 3 Venus-Pluto retrogrades: withdrawal, reclamation, rehabilitation, rototilling of our addictions and values. Less is more. And the way I wanted to phrase this is, Pluto is the caterpillar going into the chrysalis, coming out the butterfly, okay? In this case, what we are getting with is, you don't see a caterpillar taking a whole lot of baggage into the chrysalis. It just doesn't happen. If that's the case, they usually die. They don't make it out the other end. This is what's going on for us. We have to leave as much of the old systems that just aren't doing it anymore, leave them behind. All right? This winter for us is the caterpillar being the gooey mess. Okay? The butterfly starts to come out. The superior conjunction of the Venus cycle is October of 2022, 9 months after the Venus inferior conjunction. All right? And tonight is the Sun-Venus inferior conjunction. This is the one day in a year and a half where the inferior conjunctions of any retrograde cycle are the aha moments. Okay, they're like, oh, this is how we get through this winter. This is how we can do this. This is the values I want to keep. This is the things that I no longer need. And then once Venus goes direct toward the end of January, then we move on it. Between now, the 8th and the end of January, we research, we calculate, we figure out how we're going to do this. But lay low. Keep it to yourself. Plan. Don't shoot your wad too early here, okay? Less is more. The inner lessons that we're going through this winter, we find an outer expression come the fall. That's how this cycle works. Okay, so the second part, after Sleeping Beauty wakes up, what the heck, man? I'm a mom, you know. But what ends up happening thereafter is she ends up becoming a mother, and she does everything that she can to keep her kids and her family safe. And the other part of the story too, and in some of the really ancient stories, it wasn't Maleficent who tries to take out Sleeping Beauty's children. It was the prince's mother. So it was the mother-in-law, okay? But what happens is, because the mother-in-law didn't think that Sleeping Beauty was enough for the prince, she tries to take out the children, and she tries to have the Sleeping Beauty's cook the children and serve them to the prince and the princess as a meal. I mean, literally, this is the dangerous part of what 2022 is for the world as far as Sleeping Beauty waking up. Okay, there are still people out there that are envious, jealous, however, losing control, whatever, about the idea, and they want to do everything they can to maintain this control, even if it means patricide. Is that the right word? No. infanticide. That's it. And what ends up happening, it ends up trying twice, and then it ends up actually trying to feed the prince to Sleeping Beauty, but the cook ends up having a change of heart. The cook can't do it, exposes it, the prince comes in, and they actually cook the mother-in-law. They do to her what she wanted to do to them. But this is the story. This is Sleeping Beauty, okay? This is what happened in the ancient versions of Sleeping Beauty. And this is not Disney, So...
Do you know about what just happened in Kazakhstan?
The internet stuff?
No.
No. Okay.
No, they've totally taken over.
Ah,
They couldn't take it. They couldn't get access to, the people couldn't get access to their bank accounts because they got shut out because of the COVID passes. So they stormed the government. The president has run, his son has run, everybody's fleeing. They're burning all the politicians' homes down.
excellent.
Yes!
Problem is, it's too early, really. It's still too early. That kind of stuff is going to happen more around the world come early March. All right? Mars-Pluto conjunction, Venus-Mars-Pluto conjunction.
Put that in writing.
Yes, I like to go back and document this stuff. I'm constantly getting on Facebook and said, look, I said this 3 years ago. Here it is. And it's interesting, the Mars-Pluto conjunction in early March happens at the same time as the third Venus-Pluto conjunction, the last Venus-Pluto conjunction. So it's like Mars, the warrior, comes in and escorts Venus out of Pluto's lair. Okay.
Venus the lovers, aren't they, really? Is that...
Well, masculine, feminine, they can be lovers, but it's really the yin-yang energy. We all have a masculine, we all have a feminine. If you have a strong Mars in your chart, be careful at the beginning of March. Okay, you're going to want to rip people's spines out of their body. All right. If you have a strong Venus in your chart, be careful you don't get victimized this winter. Don't let Pluto roughshod over you. It's the whole Pluto and Persephone myth kind of thing. And it's always this kind of rape, energy, to, violate you, kind of take this kind of stuff. So even in Kazakhstan, take the money, just, nope, you're not going to do it anymore. We're going to see a lot of pushback this year. And with the Jupiter-Neptune in April, there's going to be a certain finesse to it that I really like, okay? Because it's this guru. It's this, the higher side is kind of like a Gandhi kind of thing. No, don't push. What do they say about revolutions? He who fires the first shot always loses. Okay? So for us, it's more about, no, we don't attack, we withdraw. We take away our support. We pull our money. We take our stocks out. We stop going to this store. We stop doing this. We stop supporting this political party or whatever it is. Draw back from it. That's the power that we have this year, going into the springtime. Okay. I want to read you something out of a textbook that was written in 1974 about when Venus conjuncts Pluto. Okay. And remember, this was just a single pass he's talking about. We get 3 of them, so it's the whole winter. You are unable to accept social injustices. You feel strongly that something must be done about them. You are amazed at the indifference of public officials to such inhumane conditions. Once a program has been started to correct the situation, you maybe are willing to work for it if it serves these greatest in need. No sacrifice is too great for even the smallest improvement. That's Venus conjunct Pluto. And we get a super Venus conjunct Pluto, at least 300% more. And it's not something that has ever happened in this country, to this government, to this economy, ever in the history of the U.S. So,
Take that shit down.
What's that? Yeah,
Take that shit down.
yeah.
I'm going to have you arrested for saying.
Pluto gets triggered all winter. 3 times from Venus, 3 times from Mercury, once by Mars. I mean, that's a lot of triggers in just a few months. You know, go study Pluto. It's the riches of the underworld. It's, you know, he was one of the more powerful things. The brother to Zeus kind of got away with whatever Zeus let him do. You know, but in all the myths about Persephone, or all the myths about Luke Skywalker is another one. It's a Pluto and Persephone myth in disguise. You know, once they find the Force and come back the Jedi Knight and save the universe, the dark side is put in its place. Okay, so, and Mars brings it all to a head, coming to extricate Sleeping Beauty from the evil clutches. My hero. There's going to be a lot of heroes and heroines and stories of extreme courageousness that starts hitting the news February and March of this year. You know, pay attention to that. Promote that stuff. Don't let it just get hidden. Mars-Pluto trigger, March 3rd. All right, so it's like the week leading up to that. It's very warlike. It's offensive frequency. It's about facing your demons and dragons and your fears, and it's cauterization. Okay, it's going to be a notable highlight of 2022 is those first few days in March, especially tied this year to our economic systems, our monetary systems, and it's a shock treatment. That's probably going to be when the Fed just super hikes rates. Okay, it's probably going to be when the markets get totally manipulated and starts crashing and coming back, and transfer our wealth again to the point, kind of like our version of Kazakhstan. Okay, you know, and it's going to be where the people go, you know, nope, this is. So, talked about that.
So pull your money out before March.
We've been doing that. We've been moving it a lot into tangible assets, you know, and property, and things that are small enough that you could trade it, not a, you know, 1 ounce gold bar, you know, or something. So, yeah, and none of this cryptocurrency stuff. There's just way too many hackers. Too many people are losing millions and millions of dollars because they either lose their keys or somebody hacks their keys or whatever, and there's no way of tracing this stuff. So.
Get a ledger hard wallet. You know hard wallets? Okay,
Do they have? Well, yeah, that would.
That tracer, right, which means you unplug it from the internet. That's yours on there.
Yeah, if that's possible,
Yeah, yeah.
and if you can find a place to actually put it where somebody doesn't, you know.
It's like your own little hard drive,
Yeah.
and you put all your crypto on it, and you, when it's not plugged into your computer, it's not attached to anything, so nobody can hack it.
It's not into the blockchain.
Okay. Cool. It's that isolation thing again. It's pulling it, not being a part of the, you know. So Mars in 2020, really strong in 2020. There's 3 periods in 2020 that just are a little iffy for me. It's that first week in March, all of July and August. It's just kind of, in 2022, sorry, yeah. First week in March, all of July and August has just got some rough Mars transits, all right? And early December, there's a Sun superior opposition of the Sun and Mars in early December. These are the 3 trigger points in 2022. Slow start in January. February through the end of June looks decent Mars energy-wise. So February through June, crank it, kick it out, do what you need to do. January, slow start. July and August are tough. There's Mars square Saturn, square Pluto, conjunct Uranus, all crazy stuff. September's nice. It's trines from Mars to Mars and Jupiter. October to mid-November is kind of frustrating. Mars square Neptune a few times. And by December, though, with the Mars energy, what we accomplish, I have down that we're going to look back in December and go, job well done. Okay? It's the superior conjunction of the Sun, the superior opposition of the Sun and Mars. Everything from the Mars retrograde that we had back in 2020 comes to a head. Also in the fall or December of 2022. So we have a Venus peak in October, a Mars peak in December. Very large scale peak, 2-year, 18-month peaks. This is good, and it's masculine and feminine energy, but especially it's the feminine energy taking on the masculine roles. And the mother bear coming out. Sleeping Beauty is mom in 2022. Okay, so Venus energy. Venus is sitting pretty in 2022, and the timing is excellent. The whole idea of doing with less in the winter and peaking 9 months later in October with a full birth and everything, it's all kind of nice. Powerful and poignant January. If Venus is strong in your chart, mid-March, kind of a letdown. It's like, April and May, I call it romantic and remedial in April and May if you have a strong Venus. Things are nice, but it's about making sure you have the basics covered, making sure that you have boned up on the stuff that you used to know, that used to be of value, and so on. Late May to mid-June, Venus gets kind of knocked off center a little bit. So if you have Venus strong in your chart, you have to be careful at that time. And then late June to mid-July, I called it ask and ye shall receive. Okay. Mercury in 2022. Rough start again with Mercury. The Mercury conjunct Pluto 3 times. The first retrograde, late January into the first few weeks of February. Not only giving away stuff, not only realizing what you have to detach and rehab and reform everything in your life, but also communicating it, getting that message out, understanding how to do it, getting together with other people to be able to do it. That's Mercury, okay? It's retrograde in Aquarius back into Capricorn in January. So it's especially societal, okay? Aquarius, right? The Mercury retrograde in May into June is from Gemini back into Taurus. That's especially for the children. By the way, there's a really strong message in 2022 about the mother bear coming in and making sure that the children are protected. Okay? It's this from air to earth, from Gemini to Taurus. All right? The eclipses that were going on all through 2021 was Gemini Sag, and I was saying how it was going to just screw with the schools, COVID or not. All right, it was going to be messing with what gets taught in the schools, who does what, who's accountable, should the parents be teaching, homeschooling, whatever. That, it's about a 9-year peak, the eclipses in Gemini and Sag. 2022, they move into Taurus and Scorpio, and it's much more about our wants and needs and wishes and what we no longer need, what we need to transcend, transform, mutate, evolve, so on. So the eclipses, especially on Wesak, mid-May, and especially on Election Day of this year. Okay? So I said the first retrograde in January into February, not so fast. It will grow back. That's my definition of the Mercury retrograde in January and February. Just don't worry about it. If it gets taken away, you'll be able to regrow it if you really need it. Don't worry about it. Right? The Mercury retrograde in May, get out of your head and into the earth. Okay? It's about stop thinking, start doing. Okay, start applying. And actually even May, just earth, physical, the planting, the gardens I'm talking about, the land and so on. And then the Mercury retrograde at the end of the year, mostly in September, I call it walk your talk and keep your promises. It moves from Libra back into Virgo. And so it's societal interactions, getting everybody along, but Virgo is about keeping your promises. Virgo is about, if you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't waffle and don't misconstrue and so on. So I like the Mercuries. I have a Mercury rough start in 2022, a cool finish at the end of the year. So I talked about the Jupiter. Anybody know what the word bestow stands for?
Bestowing.
To bestow something.
To bless upon, to give.
To give what?
An honor or a blessing.
An honor, a blessing, a talent, a gift, or whatever. In the Disney version, the fairies are bestowing these, Fauna gives Sleeping Beauty the gift of, I think it was, beauty. And Fauna gives, one of the fairies gives the gift of song, and so on and so on. But there's this whole bestowal thing going on with Sleeping Beauty and everything in here. And so to confer and to bestow something, an honor, a dignity, a talent, an opportunity, that's the highest side of this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces, which peaks mid-April. April 12th, it's exact, but it's like the whole spring, okay? So think of the word bestowal, to bestow, to confer. If you keep that in the back of your mind for your actions this year, I think it'll help keep you on the right path. So, and I mentioned the stuff about the emphasis on the kids, okay? So here's a quick laydown of each month, all right? January, lay low. We got Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde. There's also a Mars square Neptune, which tends to dissipate energy. We're pushing, and just doesn't seem to connect. Today is the best part of January. Okay.
You would say that.
Regardless of whether you're here or not, okay? It's the inferior conjunction. It's the inferior. That's why I chose this date, okay? It's the inferior conjunction of the Sun and Venus. How did I put it? What must I have in my life if I were to die tomorrow? What is my kiss? What do I want? This is the main reason I'm up here tonight, is for us to garner that, to bestow that on each other, on ourselves, and whatever, and to take it into this year. So lay low in January and get this shit together. Yeah. February of 22, I called it the beautiful dreamer. There's no retrogrades after February 3rd. It's all direct planets. There's Jupiter sextile Uranus. Venus is at its greatest brilliance in the morning star. Venus spends most of the year up in the morning, brilliant, bright, an indicator, the way shower. Right? And then there's a Venus-Mars conjunction. So very, very nice, very beautiful, almost too easy February. It's like with people laying low in January, we might have to kickstart them a little bit to get them moving in February, to get moving. But by the end of February and into early March, people are going to, it makes me think of somebody like gripping the side of a table, So, April. I call April is the kiss, is Sleeping Beauty's the kid. The heart and mind unite. Again, no retrogrades again till the end of the month in April. There's that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, and by the end of April, Venus comes in there, and there's a Venus-Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. After having met at the beginning of March with Pluto and Mars, this is a nice transition. This is where we go from the rape to the mother, from being asleep and comatose to up and at 'em and, get out of my way. I have to set up my life and protect my family and, whatever. So, May, I called it. Nothing to see here, move it along, okay? There's the lunar eclipse in May. There's a whole bunch of sextiles. There's Mercury retrograde most of the month. And there's a Mars conjunct the Jupiter Neptune. And it's, did I miss March? I did, I missed March. March, I called March, you break it, you buy it, okay? There's no retrogrades, but there's a Venus, Mars conjunct Pluto, squaring Uranus, conjunct Saturn. It's like, yes, go break stuff. Go do what you need to do and own that you broke it and do something with it. That's what March is about. March is about stirring the pot as much as you can, okay? So that when April comes in and Jupiter and the Neptune comes in, we can back off and kind of let Gandhi do his thing. It's being somewhat facetious, but June. I call June, you asked for it. There's a Venus-Uranus conjunction near the full moon in Scorpio. There's 5 planets all in a line in the nighttime sky. Both Mercury and Venus are direct at this time, both forming great aspects to Jupiter and Pluto. And it's kind of like, all right, you wanted it. Here it is. Now, what are you going to do with it? Can you really own up to what you said you wanted? So, the summer solstice, I really like the summer solstice chart. It's just the planets in Aries, 7 up above. Gemini rising, too. That's another emphasis about the kids and the communication and the air signs and earth signs and so on. So, July I called in like a lion, out like a lioness. Okay? July is tricky. There's 13 difficult aspects and only 9 nice aspects. There's a Venus square Saturn mid-month where you have to stick up for yourself. And there's a new moon in Cancer at the end of the month. And it's like, sure, the patriarch wants to come in, the lion wants to come in. But in July, it's the new moon in Cancer. It's the Cancer, it's the Venus energy. It's the lioness that's going to be doing the work in July of 2022. So, August. Okay, I called August, ouch, that hurts. Okay. Twice as many difficult aspects in August than there are nice aspects in August, 16-8. All right? There's Mars conjunct Uranus on the 1st, square Saturn on the 7th, Venus is opposite Pluto on the 8th, Venus is square Uranus on the 26th, opposite Saturn on the 28th. This is all, this is all just one foot in front of the other. It always makes, don't think too grand, okay, in August. Just the one foot in front of the other. Just keep. If you try and look too grand, you're going to get overwhelmed. You're probably going to get slightly depressed, And with Mercury doing so well at that time, we learn from our mistakes. We learn where we pushed too hard or we didn't push hard enough, and we learn by it being thrown back in our faces, So September, I'm calling September drawing wisdom down. Okay, there are 6 planets retrograde. There's a kite formation amongst the planets, and a kite, it flies up. You get the objectivity. There's this overview that usually is not available in other times of the year. There's a kite in air and a kite in earth. There's a kite with Jupiter is the head, and there's a kite with Neptune as the head. The two big planets of 2022. They're where the kite is heading in September. All right? And in this case, the tails are Mercury and Venus. So the things that we learn this winter with the Mercury retrogrades are a kite doesn't fly if you don't have a solid tail. And so Mercury and Venus are the tails in September. So that's what we need to focus on. That's what we need to make sure that we have really solid. Our value system, what we want to have, how we're going to communicate, the children, the younger feminine energy, the younger ambidextrous kind of energy. That's the strength of the kite in September. And it's probably going to be the new school year, coming in. And that has to be the strongest thing. Jupiter, actually, that's when Jupiter makes its closest approach to the Earth since 1963, is September. So October, I called it rededicate yourself. There's a solar eclipse. Jupiter retrogrades back into Pisces for a few months. Mars square Neptune. Mars goes retrograde at the end. All right, and so there's this internalizing again, and it's a strong Mars emphasis and solar eclipse in Scorpio. All right, solar eclipses act like the birth of something, where for the next 18 months thereafter it builds and builds and grows, and there's sudden birth and the pain of birth, and then the expansion of that thing over the next year and a half or so. Lunar eclipses are more like what happens when too much water builds up behind a dam and then all of a sudden bursts. A lunar eclipse tends to flood the world with over the course of just a few days, usually not less than 2 weeks. And it just cascades right through society in a way. And that's the difference between solar and lunar eclipses. The solars are the ones that they start something, they impregnate something, and then the birth happens, and then it builds and builds and builds. The lunar eclipse is a culmination, it's a fruiting, it's saturating to the point that it has to overflow. And we get one of those on election day, so the lunar eclipse. So November I called whoops, wrong turn. Is November. There's Mars square Neptune mid-month. Actually, Mars squares Neptune a few times in through there. There's the lunar eclipse on election day. The Sun and Venus, there's that superior conjunction, the Sun and Venus, but they're squaring Saturn, and they actually form a T-square to Saturn and Uranus, which is always just a little tricky, all right? It's opposite Mars. It's like, wait a minute. Careful, back up, slow down. You took a wrong turn. Back up, regroup, rededicate yourself. Go back to what you saw in October and rededicate yourself and work with that, and don't go nuts in November. Okay, there's a tendency to want to go overboard. It's the Mars retrograde, especially. Remember, when Mars goes retrograde, it turns us into pressure cookers, and we want to be able to have an appropriate outlet, one that we decide on, not one that happens to us by suddenly popping, okay? And December 2020, good intentions, delayed actions. Job well done. Whole bunch of green and blue. Mars is retrograde still, but it's with the Jupiter, and the Jupiter goes into Aries. There's the Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus, and even Pluto are all in Capricorn. They're all sitting up in the night sky. All that energy in Capricorn is this is like, the age of Aquarius had about a 40 to 44 year window. And it started in the late 1980s, and it goes to the early 2020s, okay? And during that period of time, through everything, there was these strong emphasis on Capricorn energy. It's why the corporations got so why we had the Morgan Stanley. It's why we have the Everclear in China, the Everglade, whatever that was called, the real estate. But it's these corporations, it's the last vestiges. It's like Capricorn energy really wanted to make sure it came in and rototilled this corporate cement concretization that happened. And this is what is going to pop open the beginning of the Aquarian age. In 2024 into 2025, we have every single planet in our solar system changes signs within 14, 16 months, whatever. Right? That rarely happens. Okay, I look back over a few hundred years. The only time it happened was in 1955. It came really close. And if you start thinking about the whole, what the mindset of the country was at that time, you can see this kind of shifting of attitudes, not in the best of ways at that time. Right? But when a planet changes signs, it changes attitude. The idea that every single planet is going to change its attitude, that means around the world, we are going to have a major change in the way we relate to each other, what are our values, what's important, what's our attitudes about life. I'm calling it the grand entrance, and I literally think that as Pluto goes into Aquarius, that grand entrance, people are going to look back in history and go, that's when the Aquarian age started. It started to filter in the 1980s with the computers and the tech and all that kind of stuff. All right, but it's not going to be until we get Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius where we really start to see the benefits. And unfortunately, what seems to happen when we change ages is it's not this pendulum that's just constantly swinging back and forth, right? The age happens and all of a sudden it's like somebody kicks the pendulum and it swings way wide to the left, swings way wide to, and then over a few generations, then it finally starts to settle in on where it's supposed to be for the proper manifestation of that energy. And so that's what we're dealing with at the moment. We're dealing with the wide swing of the scientists, the good of the whole over the good of the person. What's that phrase from Star Trek and everything? Spock is, he talks about the idea. He says you have to sacrifice the individual for the good of the whole. That's Aquarius. That's a very cold Aquarian. Aquarius is not very compassionate. Okay, it's mind energy. Pisces was the heart energy. Disconnect the two. The whole idea is to try and get them together. That usually doesn't happen for the first generation or so. Okay, which is what we've been dealing since the 1980s. So, okay, what time we got there? Cool.
Hey Glenn, could I just ask a question?
Sure.
Quickly, touching on that, can you talk a bit about the metaverse and how that relates, how that ties into the age of Aquarius and what it represents in terms of...
That's Neptune and Pisces. That's Neptune and Pisces. That is like, keep everybody distracted, keep them in front of the computer screen, out of the real world so that they don't cause problems. Right. Okay. It's a shiny trinket. Like how they used to do that for the birds. They'd leave something shiny out. So that's what this is. I don't... Once Uranus gets into Gemini, or toward the end of Gemini, the early 1930s, yes, then we might see some sort of metaverse kind of thing that will be appropriately applicable to an Aquarian culture. But the way it's, as I understand it, the way it's being packaged now, it's a distraction. It's they're not working, they're not doing this, and not just leave them for hours in front of the, that's how I see it. All my life, I have a Sun, Mercury, Neptune conjunction, so I am not computer friendly. I don't like that concept. I'm much more music and illusion and this kind of stuff, mystical kind of things. I spent my whole life telling my son, don't just do computer stuff, okay? Don't just learn how to program computers. Have a skill, have a trade. And then if you do it, it's just, but actually what he's working on is he went into computer programming in a way, but what he's working on, he at least took my advice, and he's creating a game that never stays the same because the characters and the things that happen in the game are triggered by astrological transits. So by like Uranus going into Gemini, the 7 years while it's in Gemini, the game has something different. When Mars moves through the different signs, there's different rewards, there's different actions that can take place. And so nothing can ever stay the same in the game because it takes 26,000 years or more for the same chart to come around where you get the same chart again. So I'm hoping he has the wherewithal to actually finish that if he's going to do that kind of thing. So, does that answer your question there?
Slightly. I'll talk to you more about it after.
Okay. For me, I think it's a distraction.
I think
Okay.
it is too. but
It
It worries me with the youth.
exactly. But so was smartphones.
Yeah.
When I was delivering mail, 5-6 years ago, walking around town, I would just watch in different towns and stuff. I'd just watch these moms with the babies and the carriages and the kids, and they're like this walking, and the kids are on their little phones, and there's no interaction. It's like, oh my God, what's going to happen to these kids when they get older? How are they going to be able to band, connect, communicate to this? So.
The guy that we see almost every day walking up the mountain, and he's walking along looking at his phone.
Yeah. We walk our dogs up on the mountain every day, and there's always this guy, he's got like this little marine type hat on, and he's walking and he's out there, but yeah, he's got that phone and he's there. And you can see him from a mile away. There's his arms sticking out like that.
Directions for Taylor's from Google.
I don't know. I've never stopped to talk to the guy, but
I'm sure it's on Google Maps, he says.
So, any other questions? Okay, what I do want to do here is, this is my way. I've highlighted all the major things that are going on this year. All right, this is the Venus-Pluto conjunction. This is actually a combination of the symbol for Venus and Pluto. There's the Saturn and Aquarius. This is the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces, Uranus and Taurus, the Mars retrograde in Gemini. So I put them on the chart, and I want to spin the wheel and go around the chart. In a way, it's the river of fortune. Okay, and I want to go through and, if you have the sun, moon, or rising sign in whatever I start working with, I can delineate these for your chart, how they're going to be. So this is all personalized now stuff. So, and what I wanted to start with is Capricorn, because we're in the middle of this Capricorn stuff in the winter. Okay, so anybody who has Capricorn rising, sun in Capricorn, moon in Capricorn, or a bunch of planets in Capricorn, okay, this is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with the Venus, Pluto in the first house. First house is your body. What do you need to lose? Is it weight? Is it this? Do you need to change something about your body? Do you need to cleanse your arteries? Do you, what needs to evolve and mutate, having to do with your actual physical body? Saturn in Aquarius, your money, your values are going to come through social media, unique plans, getting together, doing, don't you do like a podcast and stuff like that too? So that's a good source for value and income. The Jupiter, Neptune in the third house, that's channeling, that's your ability to speak, that's your ability to speak about wisdom and spiritual matters and cutting through the fog. Your third house is how we perceive and communicate. Uranus in the fifth house in Taurus, that's kind of nice. That's romantic, that's lusty, that's sexy, that's expecting something out of the ordinary. Okay? Could be your children too, by the way. It can also be your child having to deal with these kind of attractions and creativity. Fifth house is creativity, whether it's your children or it's your vitality, it's your talent, what you do to have fun. But Uranus there, yeah, I like, that's stir it up, mix it up. The Mars retrograde in the sixth house in Gemini. This one's a little tricky, okay, because the Mars retrograde, that's where the power is going to be in Gemini. Your health, your daily health is going to have to do with breathing, singing, exerting yourself, exasperating breath, toning, but working the lungs, getting the circulation moving in your body. That's but it's also not having routines, not the same thing over and over again. Oh, go walk here today. Oh, go work out on this tomorrow. Go sing this day. But stay mixed. So anybody else have strong Capricorn in their chart? Tristan? Are you resonating to any of this stuff here? Yeah. Okay. So if we have Aquarius, all right? Aquarius rising, Aquarius sun, moon, dominant, a lot of planets in Aquarius. So what we end up here is we end up with Saturn in the first house. Learning that you're getting old. Learning that things are going to take extra energy, extra effort. Where you find Saturn is where you have to do your sweat equity. You have to nose to the grindstone. It's in the house that has to do with your physical body. Okay, so limber, stay straight. In Aquarius especially. Again, it's more air energy. It's magnets, it's vibrations and Reiki and these kind of things. But especially, it's about coming to terms with the limits of your body and how do you unlimit it as much as possible. Okay, last year, this year, into next year. Best time in a 30-year cycle to make sure you keep yourself limber. All right. The Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces in the second house, this is like pie in the sky kind of dreams, money and stuff. It's like, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Don't get caught up in the scams and the misdirections and this, just stick with tangible, basic financial plans. And if you're going to do any sort of investing, make sure it has that metaphysical, Neptune, spiritual, philosophical bent to it, then you probably do okay. Uranus in the fourth house in Taurus, that's often a change in residence, different family members, pets come and go. There's this need to suddenly fix something with the home, things break, this kind of stuff. So the unexpected things are going to be in your foundations, in your home, in your property, and even your genetics and your lineage, your parents and grandparents and stuff. So, and then the Mars retrograde in Gemini in the fifth house. For Aquarian people, this is going to be very much younger lovers, old lovers coming back into the picture, staying young, finding some sort of new hobby or talent, or it's usually Gemini is like dance and playfulness, and Mars retrograde here. You might start channeling all sorts of information. Keep track, get it down, document it, because it's only going to be there for about 3-month period of time toward the end of the year. So, but notice how all of these are under the horizon. Same with the Capricorn. It's all stuff going on internally. For you guys, you don't play it out in front of the neighbors, you know. And and for Aquarians, the Venus Pluto in Capricorn, this is getting rid of old repressions, what your parents did and how they made you feel, and you know, past life, not past life, but early childhood trauma, you know, really kind of delving down in there, the dark night of the soul kind of stuff, and bringing it to light and saying, no, I'm not going to let this subconsciously rule my life anymore. So, Pisces sun, moon, rising, dominant functions, all right. The Jupiter, Neptune in Pisces. You guys have to watch about weight, okay? This is real easy to just get nice and flabby and comfortable and, oh, right, yeah.
Would that apply to the nodes in Pisces too? Or not so much?
Not as much. The nodes are more kind of, the nodes tend to be more of a spiritual thing.
Okay.
You know, past life, future life stuff, and so they don't play out as much obviously in your life. But if you have the Jupiter Neptune going over the North Node, let's say, all right, that's a wonderful, one of the best times in your life to follow a spiritual path that you normally wouldn't have been able to do. Okay? If it's going over the South Node, people come into your life that you've known from past lives. People come in and help you move toward your North Node by giving you gifts, paying off karma that they owed you, or you owe it to them. But it's a washing away of old karma and freeing yourself up, having to do with that. Okay, so Pisces there. The Jupiter, Neptune, this is somebody, okay, you want to put your shingle out as a channel, you want to put your shingle out as a mystic or, you know, a Yogananda type or whatever. This is like one of the best times in your life. You probably can do so if you wanted to go that way. On the negative side, it's real easy to con people. It's, you know, it's real easy to, the glamour for people to not see who you really are, and you put up this fake front. Uranus is going to be in the third, so this is, the third house is often not just communication, but it's your siblings, it's how you have learned to perceive things. Uranus in through there, it's like epiphanies. It's like, oh my gosh, I've been thinking it's this all my life, and now I know, you know, it's sudden revelations, okay, especially about childhood, your childhood, children in general, okay. The Mars retrograde in Gemini in the fourth, that may very well be something like you have to go back home. You have to go visit. You literally have to go back to a childhood home or a place where the family used to be, or to get a gathering together, especially at the end of the year. Do a homecoming. You know, pull your genetic family together and affirm, reassess, reconnect what you can do with those people, how you stay connected, how you stay, you know. So, the Venus Pluto is in the 11th house. For Pisces, it's about deciding which organization and which friends and stuff just don't fit the bill anymore. I don't need them anymore. I don't want to be addicted to that person. I don't want to be the victim or, you know, vampired by this person, you know, or organization. 11th house is organizations. It can be political groups. It can be, in this case being Capricorn, it can be your job. It can be, you know, it can be the things that you have done in a group with other people. And you may just find that that group just needs to be whittled down. It just doesn't do it anymore. Saturn in Aquarius in the 12th. You're going to need to sleep more. Okay? It's going to be difficult to sleep. Okay? You are going to have some of the wildest dreams. And they're going to be the kind of things that take therapy to untangle. They're not going to be these kind of just...
Isn't the 12th house about institutions and stuff like that?
On the negative side, yeah. It's where you are different from society, and society isolates you. It's sense, yeah. Stellium in the 12th.
Not in this one, no, but in Cancer.
Oh, okay. Any planets in the 12th house, to me, always direct me to the parents. Because whatever that planet is, if it's Mars, the parents told you, don't be Mars. You know, if it's Jupiter, don't be too wise. Don't be bigger than your britches. If it's Venus, don't be feminine. You know, and it shows where you were told, don't be like this because society will say you're different, and then you won't be able to partake of the societal interactions and benefits. You know, with Saturn in through there, it's especially for Pisces people, it's don't, you know, stop, just keep to the limits. Don't, you know, don't try and work it out yourself. Somebody else will do it for you. So, and again, there's way deeper meanings to all of this stuff. This is just what pops to me most obviously. Any questions on Pisces? Okay, so Aries rising, Aries sun, dominant functions in Aries, Aries moon. Okay, we end up with Uranus in the money house. Okay, so, you know, when it rains, it pours. Oops. No more, you know, back and forth. It's very unpredictable finances, changing in value system. You know, you might have been gone all your life wanting to collect these things and finding value, and then all of a sudden one day you just wake up and going, yeah, you know, whole new value system, whole new sense of self-value and self-love. Mars retrograde in the 3rd in Gemini. This can be trouble with siblings. This can be you butt heads and you have to kind of communicate. And usually you're going to have to get on their doorstep to do so. You can't just text them or write them or whatever. Usually this means you have to put a little extra effort into thinking how they're thinking, putting yourself in their shoes. Okay. Venus in the 10th house in Capricorn. This is the degree I was going through, the career that I wanted, the waves that I wanted to make in the world. They're too complicated. I need to pare down. I need to get back to basics. I don't need as much. I don't need to make as many waves to be powerful in the world. That's what this is. Saturn in the 11th in Aquarius. That's a tricky, because that could be good and bad, and that can be somebody who is looking at the groups and saying, that's how I want to work. That's where I want to pour all my energy. I'm going to help that candidate win, or I'm going to help Greenpeace save the whales, or you know. It's
the 11th house your gift, isn't it? How you meet the world.
It's how you interact with groups of people to bring out their gifts and yours, okay? But it's group gifts, group talents. 5th house is the individual talent. Okay, so, yeah.
That's how you meet the world with your
Yeah. So Jupiter, Neptune in Pisces, these people get a voice-activated tape recorder, get a dream journal, you know, plan to meditate more, do whatever you need to tap that unconscious realm so that you can be guided and be taught in a non-physical way, a more etheric way. So, what did I miss here?
I think you're pretty good.
That's it. Okay, so Taurus rising. So for anybody with strong Taurus in their chart, Uranus is in the first house. These are the makeovers. These are the ones that go out and have plastic surgery. These are the ones that get, their body pierced and want to suddenly change how they look. They do, it's like those shows, the makeover shows that they do on TV. Boom, something happens and you just suddenly want to change. In an absolutely worst case scenario, it can be the kind of thing where, my body just isn't the same anymore. I don't have 4 limbs anymore, or something like that. And in the most positive sense, it is, you've wanted to change something your whole life, boom, here's where you finally have the impetus and the revolution to do so. Mars retrograde in Gemini in the second house. Usually the Taurus people, they're going to be struggling with new ways to make money. And it usually isn't just one thing. It's a number of things. 3 part-time jobs, doing this, doing that, doing this. Not fixating on any one thing, but especially the movement of information or products or whatever, people around. Gemini in the second house means you make money by speaking, communicating, educating, delivering, moving, disseminating something of intellectual value. For these, now with Taurus, we're getting a lot of it's starting to happen up near toward the top of the chart. The 9th house, Venus, Pluto, and Capricorn. That's especially good if you learn to go and partake of other cultures other than just the one that you were born in. To learn that your culture maybe has a little bit too many things that you're wrapped up in, and go see how other cultures, what's valuable to them. To learn the higher wisdom. Venus, Pluto in through here. This is also somebody, start studying the Quran or the Torah or whatever, some sort of sacred text or something. This is some really, really deep meaning in it. Saturn in the 10th, especially for Taurus risings, look back at the last 15 years, how you have approached your career, who you stepped on, if anybody, how you've treated people. This is where you get your just reward. This is where you are either accepted as the expert and the master, and people give you your just due, your pay, your position, your tenure, whatever, or it's where you get pulled down off of your pedestal because you screwed people over and you pay the piper here. The Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces in the 11th, join a church, join a cult, something that's kind of metaphysical, spiritual groupings of people that have a higher, more etheric purpose, so. Okay. Gemini sun, Gemini rising, Mars retrograde in the first. The Geminis are kind of impatient to begin with. This is going to make them even worse. Okay. It's just like, if as soon as it starts getting boring, give me something else. That's it. The Mars retrograde there. You have to think about how you are presenting your interaction with others. How are you seen by others? Are you the jester? Are you the clown? Are you the warrior? Are you, what are you doing to try and firm up your reputation or your imagery? The Mars retrograde, excellent time to change some of that if you need to. Definitely most of it's going on up in the top. Venus, Pluto in the 8th house. This is anybody, husbands, wives, stockbrokers, insurance agents, wills and testaments. It's where anybody else has a finger in your monetary pie. The Venus, Pluto, extricate. Don't let them stay there. Make sure you got the right insurance. Make sure you don't have too much insurance. Make sure you don't give somebody too much control over something that can be your bottom line. Draw it back, pull back. You don't need a million investments. Find the ones that are appropriate. And even with a husband, it may meet, or a wife, it's a reckoning. It's a coming to terms with who pays for what. Where's the vulnerability in the relationship? Can you be vulnerable in a relationship? Or are you like, no, that's mine, that's yours, Saturn in the 9th, this is often where societal, politically correct, social, cultural things come in, and they cause you to have to jump through some extra hoops and to get past biases, get past intolerances, get past religious indifferences, and so on. And it usually will manifest by somebody who has more power than you from another country coming in and causing you to have to do a lot of extra work that you didn't think you would have to do. Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces in the 10th, that's probably the best place to have it, the Jupiter, Neptune, in the 10th, because you do it out in the world. It's seen. You're recognized for it. You can cut through the fog. You can lay the fog down when you need to. This is, remember, the top of the chart is where you have the most influence in the world. And so this is spiritual influence. Okay. By the way, one thing I didn't mention, the Pisces, when you lay the zodiac over the earth, all right, and one of the obvious things to do is line up the Sphinx with the Leo-Virgo cusp. And then when you do that, the different cusps between the signs fall upon all these mystery spots around the world. Well, guess where the end of Pisces lies? Here. Pacific Northwest. The 30 degrees of Pisces is about 70 miles east of Mount Shasta. And so this is Pisces. So this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction happening at the end of Pisces, figuratively speaking, is happening directly over the Pacific Northwest, high in the sky. It is where on the planet the Jupiter-Neptune energy is going to be most visible.
Why is it the obvious thing to do to line up the Leo-Virgo cusp with the Sphinx?
Because Leo's the lion, Virgo is the man or the woman, and so the Sphinx is the Leo-Virgo cusp. Okay, Mount Shasta is the Pisces. Mount Shasta is the end of the zodiac. Okay, it is not the base chakra. It's the crown chakra of the planet. All right, Aries, Sedona is the beginning of Aries. The Serpent Mounds is the beginning of Taurus on the East Coast. And around. Hawaii is the only landmass in Aquarius. And around, India is Scorpio. The Middle East is Virgo. And it all lines up. And there's all these power spots and ley lines and stuff that line up with all of this. And so this is a really cool way of predicting the weather, predicting kind of things. But it really especially highlights the Pacific Northwest. It's the only spot. San Francisco is Pisces. LA is Aries. The line cuts right between them, comes up through.
Where would that put somewhere like Stonehenge?
Stonehenge is Cancer, Leo. It's moving into it's at the end of Cancer and into the Leo sign. But the early Leo was the kings, the royalty. It's where the crownings took place. But there's a bunch of them. Gemini's missing. It's where Atlantis used to be, in the middle of the ocean, things like that. But it's a wonderful system. A very, very esoteric system. But That's one of the reasons why I'm saying I expect major spiritual teachers from around the planet, a bunch of them, to start moving to the Pacific Northwest. Right? On the negative side, it's Hollywood. It's the actors that are all coming up here and buying properties and stuff. That's the Neptune. That's the cheesecloth effect. It's happening too. Okay, so what I miss here? Uranus.
I know, we can stop.
Will Smith will be at your next lecture.
You know, he's got a house over the lake.
Well, there's like three big in the last year. Three big.
Will Smith has that
interesting.
big house over the lake.
Oh, is it 4 now? That's one. Okay.
He's been here for a while.
Yeah. Okay. So Uranus and Taurus in the 12th.
Oh, more than that.
So the Gemini people, who usually probably don't sleep that much to begin with, it's going to be even harder. Uranusans are there. It's like, go learn astral traveling or something. Go, stay busy while you're sleeping, because you're just not going to want to. You're not going to want to just sit still. Learn, understand, perceive. Go visit. Go communicate. Go do regressive therapies. Go to a psychotherapist and deal with early childhood traumas and stuff like that. And the breakthroughs that can happen, the epiphanies and insights, nice. So what I miss? I got it all, right? Okay, so Cancer. So this puts everything above the top, all right? The Venus-Pluto is in the house of relationships.
Oh dear.
Okay? It's like, do you really need this?
Yes.
Do you really want all of this stuff? If so, get back to the bare minimums. If you're in a long-term relationship, you want to keep it, do a second honeymoon. Do something, rededicate, reaffirm, get past any sort of addictions you have about
Okay.
Saturn in the 8th. This is usually not good for lawsuits. Okay, it's not. You don't want to sue anybody. You'll probably lose.
But isn't the 8th holding on, letting go, and also your inheritance as well?
Yeah, but it's where somebody else influences your values. Whether somebody dies and they give it to you, whether you win a lotto ticket, whether you win insurance claims.
As well, so that could be things that you inherit in terms of property or
Mm-hmm.
buildings.
But with Saturn there, yes, it could be something that has been, I guess at least for the last 15 years might have been building. But Saturn there means you have to put extra effort in. You have to spend time doing this. You have to fill out the forms. You have to,
It's also death, isn't it, as well, the 8th?
Is it?
Isn't it? Yeah, I think so. Right.
or benefiting from death, or losing value because of it.
It's also the reaper as well, isn't it?
Jupiter, Neptune in the 9th house in Pisces, go overseas, go sailing, go to, actually in this case it would be go to the Pacific Northwest. Take a trip, find the thing,
It's also spirituality, isn't it? The 9th, isn't it, I think? In the
Well, it's philosophy, it's higher learning, higher wisdom. 3rd is reading, writing, and arithmetic. Up here is the why are we here kind of things. So Jupiter, Neptune up there, yes, you could tap in. There's some really good information that can happen that way. Uranus in the 11th, got to change up the organizations you're working with, the goals and dreams, the people you're working with, learn how to, it has to do a lot with what do friends give you? Are they constantly taking? Are they giving? Is there a balance? If not, figure it out. Make a break. Change it. Level up. Get on the board of directors if you're in an organization. Don't just be one of the members. Throw a little Uranus energy in there. Mars retrograde in Gemini in the 12th. This has a lot to do with reclaiming Mars, reclaiming the hero, reclaiming Hercules, reclaiming the masculine energy, and especially looking at what you had to release or not do as a child. And how do you reclaim that? How do you become... in Gemini, it's also almost like this ambidextrous energy. It's not about being the military soldier, the warrior. It's about the joker, the fool card in the tarot deck. The ability to not be harmed no matter what you're doing. So, is that everything on them? Okay, carefully. So Leo rising, sun, moon, dominance, all right? The Venus-Pluto's in the 6th house in Capricorn, okay? You have to change your diet. You have to change your habits and your ruts and routines that you have if you want to stay healthy, if you want to be healthy. Saturn in the 7th. This is dealing with the public, dealing with the mates, your image and how you are seen by others takes work. It takes effort. You have to put some sweat equity into it. If it's a marriage, there's some extra work to do. Again, where Saturn is where you need to invest some time and energy. The Jupiter, Neptune in Pisces, this would be where somebody could win the lotto, okay? Or somebody, some long lost aunt dies and leaves you $1 million that you never knew you had. All right? Jupiter, Neptune here. This could be becoming a nun, even, because, where you marry. You don't marry a person. You marry a mystical figure, kind of thing. I mean, that's to be open and vulnerable to a mystical marriage over just a physical one. Uranus in the 10th, changing careers, changing jobs, changing what value you get from your career. Sudden, and it's not something you plan. Remember, Uranus, you don't plan it. It's like you just go along with it when it comes. Mars retrograde in the 11th. Might think about going back to some groups you used to be involved with, used to work with, organizations, avant-garde groups of people that you could work with together, and so on. Okay. This is taking a little longer than I thought. I'm not going to be getting to any of my political stuff about Biden or any of that. So I'll probably just do a second YouTube on that and put it up on YouTube at some point. Harris and Biden and Trump and the election and all that kind of stuff there. So, okay, so Virgo rising, dominant Virgo. All right. So what we have here, Venus, Pluto in the 5th house. 5th house is creativity. 5th house is your children. 5th house, this, back to basics. Back to what did you used to do that brought you joy and laughter and fun? Get back to that. Strip away the stuff that is not allowing you to be creative, be independent, be playful, be frivolous, be the lion or the lioness. Saturn in Aquarius in the 6th house. Focusing on your health, focusing on alternative. Aquarius would be alternative health, not medical doctors, okay, but it would be with Saturn in the 6th house, that's you have to change your routines. You have to, level up. 6th house is your health based upon the things you do over and over and over and over again, And so Saturn here, deal with it, do it, get used to it. Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces in the 7th. Excellent for relationship, excellent for the image with the public, excellent for being seen by the public as somebody who has the Jupiter abundance and the Neptune compassion. working that way. Kick it out. Go public. You know? Uranus in the 9th. There's some new philosophies to be had. There's some new cultures to pay attention to. Sudden awarenesses and sudden understandings of things that happen in the world, religious understandings, metaphysics, spirituality, you name it. Even possibly going back to school, some higher learning kind of things. Mars retrograde in Gemini in the 10th. Trying out new careers, trying out new ways to have an effect in the world, to make ripples. Oh, wait, I don't want that on my tombstone anymore. I want to change it. You know, try it. See, try it. You might like it. You know, be playful. Don't stick with one thing. Try a few things. Okay, Libra. Stay. Okay, so with Libra rising, we end up with the Venus, Pluto in the 4th house. That's genetics and family and lineages and grandparents dying and, you know, the family having to come together and regroup and reformulate. And if you own a home, it could even be the sewer pipes underneath, the sinkholes, the things that happen to the foundations in your home that you need to go in there and kind of reformulate, repackage. But it's often the foundation that you thought you were resting on, it's a little too thick, too heavy. Break it up. You know, get that jackhammer out and break it up and pour a new one for this winter. Saturn in the 5th house. So for Libras, this is like, if you want to have fun, you got to work at it, okay? You need to, okay, if you always wanted to dance, go learn the dances, then have fun. Go take the courses. You always wanted to paint, go take the courses, you know, do the sweat equity that will allow you the freedom to be vital and playful. And if you have children, it usually means they're going to take some extra effort here too. More sweat equity for the kids. The Jupiter, Neptune in the 6th, this is, you know, lots of water. You need your health. Be in the water. Be meditative. Be fluid. Hang out on the beach in the fog, and you know, use spiritual things. Use essences. Use these kind of things for staying routine. For living comfortably and emotionally content in your daily regime. Uranus in Taurus in the 8th. This can be a little upsetting in the sense of, you know, suddenly your car insurance, the car's gone. And they're not going to pay, you know, or no, you got to get, suddenly you need a different car because insurance won't do this or whatever. But Uranus in the 8th usually means sudden lawsuits, sudden changes in again, inheritances and business contracts. You do have to be careful that you don't just all or nothing. I would not suggest this person go to Las Vegas or anything like that under something like this. You want to be a little bit more conservative if you can with your investments because they can go sideways quickly. Mars retrograde in the 9th in Gemini. Go take a trip. Go take a cruise. Go wander in other lands. And if you can't do it financially, get on Google Maps. Get on, you know, spend time moving into other cultures and seeing what they have and experiencing, especially how the children are taught and things like that. It'd be very interesting, remember, because Libra rising people always want as many people as possible to get along. And this would be a wonderful educational experience about how the world does it, how you can do it too. Okay. Scorpio. This is definitely my stick. Okay, so Venus, Pluto in the 3rd house. How you talk, how you teach, how you educate, how you got to try different things, got to stop doing certain patterns, got to change the way you think, the way you transport and move. And like just as an example, for me, I've got like 5 planets in Scorpio. I've been all this winter, it's like, what should I do with all my old writings? 3rd house is writings. I have all this stuff. Do I do something with it? Do I package it? I'm not quite sure what to do with it yet. But we're still only partway through. So Saturn in the 4th house. Working on the house, painting the house, putting the greenhouse in, sweat equity in the foundations in the home and making it usable, making it last, making it tangible. If I want my house to be, still livable 15 years from now is when you put the time in, Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces in the 5th. That's being creative, channeling, music, mysticism, poetry. It's also can be hallucinogens or using psycho kind of things for opening up an individuality or whatever. As children, this can be the children not being completely open and honest with you. There may be a little bit of deflection or diffusion in through there. Uranus and Taurus in the 7th, a change in how we deal with the public, a change, sudden, new reputation, new division, I don't want anything to do with it, or whatever. It's like me versus them. Mars retrograde in the 8th house. Actively going and checking all of your stockbroker agreements and insurances and mortgages and earthquake this and whatever, and making sure that the wording is right and that it's covered and that you're doing something masculine about the idea of protecting your shared resources. So, okay. Last one, Sagittarius. So the Venus Pluto ends up being in the 2nd house. This is probably one of the bigger ones for learning how to love yourself. Second house is the things you give yourself depending upon how much you love yourself. Okay, so Venus Pluto there, you have to scale it back, get down to basics, get rid of the fluff, get rid of the things that keep you from loving yourself, that brings shame, that brings fear in your life. Cauterize it, take it out. Saturn in the 3rd house for Sag rising. Go back to school, put the investment into the siblings, put the investment in your communication, your ability to express yourself, to speak, to understand, to work it. Jupiter, Neptune, and Pisces in the 4th. Go live in a church, go live in a monastery, go live, take a spiritual place and turn it into your foundation. Take the foundation that you have and make it more spiritual. Add a water feature, a jacuzzi, anything. Bring the water in, bring the spirit in. Put the host retreats, whatever. Go on retreats. Go live in a retreat, but make your foundation spirit, not tangible stuff. Uranus in the 6th. this is where you really level up your diet again, what you eat, the root vegetables, this and that, the ability, get the doctor reports, check your systems. Taurus is Venus ruled. It's the homeostatic functions in your body to make sure that things are not going haywire in your health. Make sure that things are staying balanced, staying routine. Okay, because Uranus they're probably not going to be routine, and you're going to need to do stuff to normalize them as much as possible. Mars retrograde in the 7th in Gemini. By the way, Sag, Gemini, rising signs are kind of known for this to begin with. They're not the most monogamous of signs, okay, because they get bored so easily. But Mars retrograde in Gemini in the 7th house, this is like, you bore me. I got to find something else. I need more stimulation. You're actively searching for either somebody who's younger, or you want children. Give me something in my marriage that will spice it up. Give me things that will keep me on my toes. Keep me so that's it. That's everything.